Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're doing something a little different.
Yeah, we're stepping right into the fire today.
We really are. And I want to start by talking directly to you, the listener, the guy who's, maybe listening to this on his commute or in the gym between sets.
Or late at night when the house is finally quiet.
Exactly. Let me ask you a question that might be a little uncomfortable. Have you ever felt like you did everything right?
You followed the script.
Right. You know the script, you got the degrees, you followed the rules, you respected authority, you were the quote-unquote good guy.
You did what your teacher said. What society said was the path to success.
But then you look around at your life, or you look at the state of the Western world right now, and you feel cheated.
Isolated, yeah, undervalued, like the contract you signed was just shredded by the other party while you weren't looking.
Right. You feel like an imposter in a world that seems to have gone completely mad. Like you're the one who's broken because you remember a time when things actually made sense.
But you're not.
No. Today, we are diving into a source that makes a very strong case that, no, you are not broken, you're not crazy, you have been betrayed.
It's a massive deep dive today.
It is. We are looking at the explosive, highly controversial, and frankly fascinating new ebook by Conrad Reicher. It is titled Imposter Syndrome, Educated Above One's Station and Feminine Inferiority Complex.
And let me just tell you right off the bat, this book is a sledgehammer. I mean, It is an ultra-long, incredibly incisive, and rigorous analysis. It really takes a scalpel to modern society.
It's definitely not comfortable reading.
No, not for the faint of heart, but it explains so much of that cognitive dissonance that men are feeling right now. Riker connects the dots between the economy, the education system, and the gender wars in a way I just haven't seen before.
It's a heavy hitter. And before we even unpack the first layer of this, and we're going to go really deep today, I have to tell you, if you're listening to this and you feel that twinge of recognition, you need to support this show so we can keep bringing you this kind of unfiltered analysis. So please, like and subscribe to the podcast right now. But more importantly, you really need to get this book.
Yeah, we're going to cover a lot, but Riker's writing is so detailed, it's so potent. We literally can't cover every nuance here.
So go to Amazon Kindle or Google Play Books immediately and purchase Imposter Syndrome, Educated Above One's Station and Feminine Inferiority Complex. You really need the full text to arm yourself with this knowledge.
Absolutely. And for ongoing analysis, because this is a developing conversation, Riker is constantly putting out new thoughts on the collapse of these institutions. You should follow the author, Conrad Reicher, at his Substack. That's at Conrad in Reicher.
Do that right now so you don't lose the signal.
Okay, so let's set the stage.
Yeah, Riker's argument is massive. It's basically a civilizational critique. And the mission of this deep dive is to explore his argument that men have been systematically betrayed by captured institutions.
And let's be totally clear about who this analysis is really targeting. This is for the red-pilled man, the men's rights activist. Really, any man who feels what Riker calls the cold blade of betrayal from the society he was essentially raised to protect.
It's a mission statement for the modern man who feels left behind. And the core thesis that Riker presents is it's fascinating and it's tragic.
Yeah, he argues that what we call imposter syndrome, that gnawing anxiety that you aren't good enough or you don't belong in the boardroom or the academy, it's not an internal failure.
It's not a glitch in your brain. It's not a lack of confidence.
No, Riker argues it is the direct result of being, and I quote, gaslit on a civilizational scale by feminists, by Marxists, and by a broken educational system that essentially hates you.
Which is a bold claim, being gaslit by civilization. It sounds almost paranoid until you start looking at the data he brings up.
Exactly.
So let's unpack this. Section 1 of our dive is what Riker calls the Great Betrayal. And it starts with education and the lie of meritocracy.
We all grew up with this idea, right?
Yeah. If you work hard, you get the grades, you get the credential, the system will reward you. That was the whole American dream.
That was the promise, the meritocracy. We were told the smartest and the hardest working would rise to the top. But Riker argues that promise is just a flat-out lie now.
And he brings the receipts for this.
He really does. He cites this staggering statistic from the Federal Reserve in 2023. This honestly stopped me in my tracks when I read it. Get this. 45% of Americans with bachelor's degrees are working jobs that do not require one.
Wait, 45%? Nearly half.
Nearly half.
That is unbelievable.
Think about the scale of that waste. We're talking about millions of men who spent 4 years, took on tens of thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt.
studying late nights, writing papers, stressing over finals.
All to land a job they could have done straight out of high school. Riker calls this the rise of the credential zombie.
The credential zombie, that is such a vivid image. It captures the absolute horror of it perfectly. What does a credential zombie look like in the real world, according to the book?
So Riker describes the educated peasant. This is someone who is highly literate, culturally aware. Maybe they can quote Foucault or discuss the nuances of intersectionality or, global macroeconomics.
High verbal intelligence.
Exactly. Very high verbal intelligence. But they are working low agency jobs. They're baristas, Uber drivers, content moderators, warehouse pickers.
They have all this high-level processing power, but zero status.
Zero power and massive debt. They are essentially the walking dead in the modern economy.
There's a really brutal anecdote in the book about this that drives the point home. Riker talks about a woman he met at a tech conference.
Oh, this story, yeah.
She introduces herself with this incredibly intimidating title, a PhD in gendered ontologies of digital space. Which, that sounds impressive in a purely academic sense.
It sounds like she should be running a massive think tank.
Yeah, right. It uses all the right buzzwords. It's incredibly sophisticated. But then Riker asks her the million-dollar question, the question you're really not supposed to ask in those circles.
And you actually do.
Yes. What do you actually do? And the mask just slips. She replies, I moderate TikTok comments for Meta.
And she's earning $28,000 a year, spending 8 hours a day removing hate speech and memes, while carrying a student loan balance of $92,000.
That's tragic. Truly, it's financial suicide.
It is. She literally told him, I thought I was building a future. Turns out I was building a pyramid scheme.
Wow.
Now, contrast that with the example Riker gives of the Bavarian electrician.
Right, the tradesman.
Yeah. This is a guy, maybe 22 years old. He didn't go to the university. He went to a dual education program.
Yeah.
Apprenticeship and trade school in Germany.
And how is he doing?
He earns 45,000 euros a year as a starting salary. He has full benefits, a pension plan, and zero debt. And crucially, he actually keeps the lights on. He interacts with physical reality.
Which prompts Riker to ask the question, who is really the educated one here? Who actually has agency?
Exactly. The electrician has total autonomy. If he walks off the job, the city goes dark. The PhD is just a replaceable cog in a machine she probably hates, enforcing rules she might not even fully agree with for poverty wages.
And this leads right into Riker's analysis of the actual purpose of modern education. Because if it's not creating successful people, what is it doing?
He argues that universities are no longer about creating leaders or innovators. They aren't trying to find the best and brightest to push civilization forward anymore.
So what are they?
Riker says they have become filtering systems for compliance.
Compliance, that's the key word there. So it's not about capability anymore. It's not about IQ.
No, not at all. In fact, high IQ can actually be a threat to the system if it's not coupled with strict obedience. Riker argues there's been a complete shift. The system now heavily rewards those who are willing to endure meaningless assignments.
Jump through bureaucratic hoops.
Right. And parrot rigid ideological belief systems. Specifically, DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion in critical theory.
It's all about submission.
Exactly. If you can repeat the slogans without questioning them, you get the degree. If you question the premise of the slogan, you are filtered out. You're a problem.
He calls it a Ponzi scheme.
He explicitly uses that term.
Yeah.
He says higher education has become a massive financial racket. It benefits the administrators, the narcissistic deans, as he calls them, who have seen their salaries explode by 400% in the last 30 years.
And the banks holding the loan debt.
Right. But it leaves men with a piece of paper that grants absolutely no status, no power, and no land. You basically bought a ticket to a show that was canceled 20 years ago, but they're still happily selling seats at the box office.
And that brings us perfectly to the title of the book, Educated Above Your Station. When I first read that, I'll be honest, I thought it sounded a bit elitist, like stay in your lane, peasant. But Riker means something entirely different, doesn't he?
He does. It's not an insult at all. It's a diagnosis of a structural trap.
Okay. He doesn't mean men aren't smart enough. He means they have been trained in high-level concepts, or at least given the language of high-level concepts, but they are completely locked out of the economic machinery required to actually use them.
So they have the vocabulary of the elite?
But the bank account of the peasant. Exactly. You have been educated for a station in life that simply no longer exists for you.
It creates a massive psychological toll, that huge gap between expectation and reality.
Profound alienation. Riker describes the working class man who gets a degree. He becomes isolated from his roots. He can't relate to the guys back home anymore because he's been trained at university to critique their so-called toxic masculinity.
And their provincial values.
Right. But at the same time, he is completely rejected by the elite class he's trying to join because he's a straight white male, which makes him an active target in the current ideological climate.
So he's essentially homeless, culturally speaking.
Yes, he has nowhere to stand. There's that story of the Yale philosophy grad steaming milk in New Haven. He's terrified of being doxxed. And why? Simply because he believes in objective logic.
Yeah, he's making lattes, living in absolute fear that someone will find out he actually thinks 2 + 2 = 4, and that logic is real.
Because in the current university climate, holding on to objective reality can be considered a microaggression.
Or a dog whistle. He's trapped. He can't speak his mind, and he can't earn a living in his field. He is the ultimate victim of the meritocracy lie.
That transitions perfectly into section 2 of our deep dive, the death of the trivium and the rise of the woke Babylon.
Yeah, this is a fascinating historical pivot Riker makes.
He talks a lot about the trivium. Now, for the listener who might not be up on their medieval education history, and frankly, why would you be, since they stopped teaching it decades ago, let's unpack that. What exactly is the trivium?
The trivium was the absolute foundation of Western thought for over a millennium. It was the system that built the modern world.
Okay.
It consisted of 3 parts: grammar, logic, and rhetoric.
Break those down for us based on Riker's analysis.
Sure. So grammar is the mechanics of language. It's how to describe reality accurately and objectively. Logic is the mechanics of thought, how to construct a valid argument and distinguish true from false. And rhetoric is the application of that truth to persuade others.
So it's a progression.
Exactly. These were the fundamental tools of a free man. They taught you how to think, not what to think.
And Riker says these are just gone, erased.
Systematically removed. You don't remove the foundation of a building by accident. Riker argues they have been deliberately replaced by propaganda, manipulation, and performative guilt.
We don't teach students how to construct a valid syllogism anymore.
No, we teach them to detect microaggressions and implicit bias.
This is what he calls the cult of feelings.
Yes, the complete shift from objective truth to lived experience. In the trivium, truth is external. It's something you discover out there in the real world. It's a rock. You might bump into it, but it doesn't move for you.
But in the cult of feelings,
Truth is internal. It's whatever you feel it is in that moment. And if someone challenges your feeling with a verifiable fact, that challenge is literally framed as violence.
it's a complete inversion of the intellectual process.
Total inversion.
There was that shocking example in the book, the chemistry exam. Tell us about that, because I had to read that page twice to believe it was real.
Oh, it's unbelievable. But it perfectly illustrates where we are. A chemistry exam, which deals in atomic weights and molecular bonds, things that absolutely do not care about your feelings, was deemed a civil rights violation
A civil rights violation for a chemistry test.
because it induced severe anxiety in the students taking it.
That's insane.
Riker points this out as the absolute death knell of competence. If anxiety over a test is a civil rights violation, how on earth do you train an engineer to build a bridge?
Gravity doesn't care about your anxiety.
Exactly. Physics isn't inclusive. The steel doesn't care if you felt supported by your peers when you calculated the load-bearing capacity. It will either hold a weight or it will collapse.
And then you have the decolonizing mathematics movement.
Right, the whole 2 + 2 = 4 debate. There are actual movements within academia right now, well-funded movements, arguing that insisting on a single right answer in math is a tool of white supremacy or colonial oppression.
Which Riker sees as the ultimate breakdown of reason.
If you can't agree on basic mathematical reality, you simply cannot maintain a technological civilization. You're heading straight back to the mud hut. But hey, you'll feel very inclusive on the way down.
So how did this happen? How did we lose the institutions that were explicitly designed to protect objective truth? Riker says it boils down to institutional capture.
Yeah, he argues that feminists and Marxists realized decades ago that they couldn't win on the economic battlefield or through open logical debate because their ideas simply don't work in practice.
So they changed tactics.
They captured the institutions from the inside: universities, HR departments, the media. He actually calls HR departments the new Vatican of the woke religion.
The HR priesthood. That is a very strong image. It really suggests a rigid dogma.
It fits the function perfectly, though. He notes that HR is staffed roughly 89% by women or inclusion officers.
And their job.
Their job, according to Riker, isn't to help the company run efficiently, or even to protect the company from external lawsuits, at least not primarily. It's to spy on male behavior and enforce ideological purity.
It's a modern inquisition.
Exactly. They are the political commissars of the corporate workplace.
He mentions the diversity industrial complex in this section, too.
An $8 billion a year industry. DEI consultants. That is a massive amount of capital being funneled into a sector that produces no tangible product whatsoever, other than compliance training and racial guilt. It is basically a tax on productivity.
There's that anecdote about the Boeing engineer. This one really scared me, actually, because I fly a lot.
It should scare everyone who flies.
Yeah.
A senior Boeing engineer was suspended for his tone.
His tone, not his work.
Right. He pointed out a factual mathematical error in a colleague's spreadsheet regarding safety data. He wasn't wrong. The math was entirely on his side, but his delivery was considered emotionally unsafe.
Unbelievable.
Riker uses this to illustrate that emotional safety now officially trumps competence, and even actual physical safety. When you prioritize feelings over physics in aerospace engineering, planes literally fall out of the sky.
We are sacrificing safety on the altar of politeness.
That's exactly it.
That is terrifying. And it really connects to the next part, Section 3, the feminine inferiority complex and gynocentrism. Now, this is where Riker really goes deep into the gender dynamics. This is the part that will get you canceled at a dinner party, but according to the source material, we need to talk about it.
Oh, he does not hold back here at all. Riker's theory of the feminine inferiority complex is that there is a deep-seated drive in the current cultural framework, driven largely by women,
Sure.
to actively destroy male spaces and meritocracy.
And why is that?
Because, Riker argues, they cannot compete on a level playing field of pure logic, stoicism, and obsessive focus, the traits that traditionally built those spaces.
So his argument is essentially, if you can't win the game, you just change the rules.
Exactly. You change the rules from who is the most competent to who's the most inclusive, or who's the most emotionally intelligent.
Right.
Riker argues that deep insecurity is masquerading as moral authority. The constant demand for equity is actually a tacit admission of an inability to compete on pure merit.
And he defines this resulting environment as gynocentrism.
The tyranny of gynocentrism. It means the entire culture automatically defaults to female interest and female narratives.
How does that play out in everyday life?
If a man has a problem, it's his fault. He needs to do better, be more vulnerable, check his privilege. But if a woman has a problem, it's society's fault. We need a new government program, a new law, more funding. It is a complete one-way street of accountability.
He talks about the weaponization of empathy. I found this really interesting because we usually think of empathy as a universally good thing, a virtue.
Riker completely flips that script. He says women use tears, social exclusion, and reputation destruction as very potent weapons.
Unlike men.
Right. Men naturally fight with direct confrontation. It's physical, it's loud, maybe there's a fist fight out back, but it's over quickly, the hierarchy's established, you buy each other a beer afterward.
But female aggression is different.
Riker argues female aggression is coalitional and psychological. It's about destroying your standing in the tribe without ever having to throw a physical punch. It is a slow, lingering poison.
This leads right into the Believe Women movement and what Riker calls the myth of female innocence.
This is a highly critical point in the book. Riker asserts that women are just as capable of coalitional aggression, lies, and pure sadism as men are. But society, point blank, refuses to see it.
Because of our biological programming.
Yes, we have this biological blind spot, the women are wonderful effect, where we just assume innate female innocence. We see a crying woman, and we automatically assume there must be a male victimizer nearby.
He brings up the legal warfare aspect of this. Family courts, Title IX.
The Title IX kangaroo courts in modern universities are a prime example. Due process is effectively suspended for male students. If an accusation is made, the man is presumed guilty from day one.
Because questioning the accuser is seen as harmful.
Exactly. To question her is to re-traumatize her. Riker actually reaches back to ancient Roman law for this. He cites the concept of the femina calumniatrix, the slanderous woman.
Interesting. So this isn't a new concept.
Not at all. The Romans, who were no fools when it came to human nature, knew this archetype existed, and they had strict laws to deal with it. We have completely forgotten it. We have systematically removed the safeguards against false accusation because we are so terrified of appearing unchivalrous.
And the anecdote about the tech lead, that one was chilling.
The tech lead fired for prolonged eye contact. Just think about the sheer subjectivity of that charge.
Right. It wasn't harassment. It wasn't inappropriate touching.
No. It was looking at someone for too long. Riker uses this to show that the rules are shifting sand. You can be professionally and socially destroyed for something entirely subjective simply because a woman felt unsafe.
How do you even defend yourself against someone else's internal emotional state?
You can't. It's impossible.
It's the ultimate double standard. Toxic masculinity versus trauma response.
Right. When men display natural traits, they're competitive, they're stoic, or they're highly direct, it's pathologized as toxic masculinity. We're told we need to cure men of being men.
But when women behave badly,
When women are emotionally manipulative, volatile, or literally make false reports to HR, it's immediately reframed as a trauma response or reactive abuse. Riker argues this language is explicitly designed to disarm men and absolve women of all accountability. It is linguistic warfare.
let's move to section 4. The satanic elites and the war on biological reality. Now, Riker uses the word satanic here, which is heavy. But he clarifies he's not talking about red horns and pitchforks. Really.
No. Although he does say the end effect is much the same. He's using it in a deeply philosophical sense. Philosophical Satanism.
How does he define that?
He defines it as the complete inversion of all natural values. Truth becomes falsehood, strength becomes oppression, beauty is labeled as hate, health is a sign of privilege.
It's flipping reality on its head.
It's taking the natural order, the exact order that allowed humanity to survive and thrive for 200,000 years, and just flipping it upside down.
And the biggest target of this inversion, according to the book, is biology itself.
The attack on biological reality. This is the main front line of the culture war. Riker discusses the systematic erasure of biological sex in both academia and the medical field.
Which seems impossible.
You have elite medical schools right now literally apologizing for using terms like male and female, which are the most basic, fundamental descriptors of mammalian life.
They are prioritizing ideology over the actual physical bodies they are supposed to be treating.
Exactly.
He touches on the transhumanist agenda here, too.
Yes, the idea that the satanic elites are actively pushing for a world where nature is effectively deleted
Yeah.
and replaced by algorithms and what they call value loading.
Value loading, meaning what?
Basically, programming approved morality directly into the human species. Because natural humanity, specifically natural male humanity, is viewed by the elites as inherently flawed, dangerous, and overly aggressive. They essentially want to breed the man out of the man.
Riker calls this the betrayal of science.
It is a massive ideological purge. We are seeing major scientific papers on sex differences or meritocracy being quietly retracted.
And not because the data is wrong.
This is the crucial point. Not because of methodology errors, but because the findings are considered harmful. The data is entirely correct, but it hurts the approved narrative, so it must go. That is not science. That is dogma.
The story of Dr. Reed really highlights this.
Dr. Reed, a brilliant evolutionary biologist who published a highly rigorous, peer-reviewed paper on binary sex. The science was rock solid. It was just standard biology, as understood for the last century.
But what happened?
He was completely disavowed by his own institution for threatening community safety.
There's that word again, safety.
Right. Riker points out that safety has been redefined by these institutions to mean protection from facts we don't like. When a major university fires a top-tier scientist for stating a basic biological fact, that university has ceased to exist as a place of learning, it is now basically a madrasa.
And Riker goes even darker here, calling modern bioethics eugenics 2.0.
He specifically calls out afterbirth abortion argument.
Which just sounds like an oxymoron.
It does, but these are real arguments that have surfaced in prestigious bioethics journals. Arguments making the case that a newborn infant doesn't possess the same rights as a person yet. He argues this is absolute moral bankruptcy disguised as high-level academic progress. It's the elite managerial class deciding who is considered human enough to live. It is the ultimate expression of the God complex.
Okay, we've painted a pretty bleak picture here today. The institutions are captured, logic is dead, biology is being erased, and you are actively being hunted by HR.
It's heavy.
It's really heavy. It's enough to make any guy just want to check out entirely. But section 5 is where Riker finally pivots. He talks about the red pill, stoicism, and the manosphere awakening.
This is the turn. This is where we stop just staring at the car crash and start actually looking for the exit.
Right, solutions.
Riker says the manosphere awakening is not a hate movement, regardless of how the mainstream media constantly portrays it.
He sees it as a positive.
He describes it as a massive return to sanity and self-respect. It's men finally waking up, looking at the scoreboard, and realizing the entire game is rigged against them.
And once you realize it's rigged, you have to stop trying to fix it by playing their game. voting or arguing.
Exactly. Riker says you cannot fix a broken system using the tools provided by that same system. You cannot vote your way out of a total cultural collapse. You have to look elsewhere.
And he champions the virtue of stoicism for this.
He does. But he makes a very careful distinction between what he calls bro-stoicism, which is just suppressing your emotions until you inevitably explode, and true stoicism, the kind practiced by Marcus Aurelius or Epictetus.
What's the core difference for Riker?
True stoicism is about building an impregnable inner fortress. It's moving away from the modern obsession with processing trauma and constantly talking about your feelings, which Riker views as the feminine mode of operating.
And moving toward what?
Toward action. It's about aggressively reclaiming virtues like courage, honor, and duty, things the modern world labels as toxic, but which Riker argues are absolutely essential for a man's basic survival.
It's about control.
It is about emotional control, not emotional suppression. You feel the pain, you acknowledge it, but you act with reason regardless.
One of the most powerful tactical concepts in the book is the power of silence.
Strategic disengagement. Riker heavily advises men to just stop arguing with ideologues. He has this great line in the book: "You cannot deplatform a man who says nothing."
That is profound. If you don't play their game, they literally can't use your words against you.
It's known as the gray rock method. You become completely uninteresting to the feminists and the HR departments. You don't react to their provocations. You don't explain yourself. You don't defend your actions.
You just ignore the bait.
Exactly. When they try to provoke you into a toxic reaction so they can penalize you, you give them nothing. Blank slate. Silence is a weapon. It absolutely terrifies them because they can't read you and they can't control what they can't read.
He gives the example of the Wall Street quant.
This guy is honestly the hero of the book, in my opinion.
Tell a story.
So this quant, he realizes the system is corrupt, but he doesn't make a scene. He doesn't send a fiery company-wide email blasting the new DEI policy. He didn't rage about it on
He
Twitter.
just kept his head down.
He kept his head down. He stacked his cash for years. He quietly bought land and built a homestead to get himself completely independent. And then, only when he was totally secure, he published his massive critique of the industry.
He waited until he was untouchable.
That is the strategy Riker advocates. Build your fortress first. Do not go to war naked.
And that leads perfectly into building the parallel economy.
This is a real actionable advice for the listener. Shift your mindset from begging for a job from people who hate you to independently creating value.
Riker talks about the renaissance of craft here.
Yeah. Men are leaving these hollow, compliance-based email jobs in the cities to become welders, coders, builders. He calls them sovereign tradesmen. Men who own their tools and their highly specialized skills.
There's the story of Daniel, the Google engineer.
Daniel literally burned his corporate badge. He filmed himself doing. He left the tech plantation where he was making over $300,000 a year, but was absolutely miserable and silenced. And now he teaches stoicism to prison inmates and mines crypto in a barn.
It sounds extreme to most people.
It does. But Riker uses it to show that real freedom requires walking away from the false prestige of these captured institutions. Daniel took a massive pay cut, sure, but he bought his soul back.
And finally, he touches on MGTOW, men going their own way.
Riker discusses this not as some bitter reaction, but as a highly rational economic choice. It's not about hating women. It's about pure risk analysis.
Opting out of marriage.
Opting out of a legal and social system that highly incentivizes divorce and male wealth extraction. He contrasts the overeducated peasant who is begging for scraps of corporate status and living terrified of his wife filing for divorce with the sovereign tradesman.
The guy who owns his tools, his time, and his freedom.
Exactly.
It's a really powerful vision. The future belongs to the men who walk away and build.
That is the ultimate closing sentiment of the book. You are not broken, you are betrayed. But once you actually see the betrayal for what it is, you have the power to step out of the illusion. You don't have to play their rigged game anymore.
We have covered a massive amount of ground today. This book, Imposter Syndrome, Educated Above One's Station, and Feminine Inferiority Complex by Conrad Riker, is a really heavy read, but it feels like a necessary one.
It absolutely is. It's a call to arms, but a mental call to arms. Riker is asking you to reject the critical triad of identity, power, and privilege.
And replace it with what?
And embrace the transcendentals, the good, the true, and the beautiful. Focus on what is real.
And to reclaim the warrior mind. Choose resilience over fragility.
Listen, if this deep dive opened your eyes today, if you felt that deep resonance we talked about at the very beginning of the show, You need to get the full text. We have barely scratched the surface here.
Absolutely. We've given you the map today, but you have to walk the path yourself. Go to Amazon Kindle. Go to Google Playbooks right now. Buy the book Imposter Syndrome, Educated Above One's Station, and Feminine Inferiority Complex.
Read it, highlight it, study it.
It is truly a manual for surviving the modern age, and don't forget to follow Conrad Riker on Substack at Conrad Riker for his ongoing analysis of all this.
And please, if you value this kind of raw discussion, this forbidden knowledge and deep analysis that you just won't find on any mainstream networks like this deep dive, and subscribe to the podcast, we really need your support to keep going deeper into these topics.
That is it for today. Remember Riker's final thought. The future isn't found in the institutions that betrayed you. It's found in what you build when you finally walk away. Thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next deep dive.
Stay stoic.